All right, welcome in to Big Hitters Only. You're listening. We're recording on Saturday, February 22nd at 6:24, just minutes after the Tar Heels defeated Virginia 81-66 to move to 17-11 and 10-6 in the ACC. We have producer Connor Sparrow here. First, I want to talk about Delta Spirits real quick. Delta Spirits, the new sponsor of Big Hitters Only. Go to drinkdeltaspirits.com, promo code BHO10, and get you some Delta Spirits. I think me and the bride may pop open and split one tonight. 5 milligrams of, this one was 10. I think most are 5. Yeah, different flavors. It's a great little cocktail or alcohol substitute. So drink Delta Spirits. It's a THC beverage. All right, Connor. I thought UNC played pretty well, and I thought early on, even though I didn't get to watch the game until it was like 5 minutes in because of the ESPN issues and how long the Wake State game went, but I thought UNC kind of handled Virginia. I think Virginia's bad. Turn it on. You got 4 white guys, as you said, 4.5 white guys.
4.5, yeah.
Like, it looked like an Ivy League team. The game, I don't think was ever in question, but UNC was in control for the majority of the game, despite, a couple runs by Virginia, especially in the first half. I mean, UNC was up like 18-2 at one point. Come away 81-66. What are your, let's get, it's just me and you now. Let's take, what are your three major takes? What are 3 major takeaways from this game in particular?
Number one takeaway, the different lineup that Hubert Davis has gone with is working the last 3 games. Syracuse, NC State, and again tonight with Virginia. It's amazing what happens when you play guys in their natural position.
So go through the lineup.
So what we saw, especially tonight, Elliot Cadeau, RJ Davis in the backcourt. Hubert's been starting Drake Powell at the 3. Jae'Lyn Withers back in the lineup at the 4, and then Vinal and Lubin at center. It's amazing what happens when you play those guys in their natural position. Look, I love Ian Jackson, love Seth Trimble, but Drake Powell playing the 3 works. So that's the number one standout to me. You can switch everything on defense, help rebounding, and when you have an undersized center like Vinal and Lubin or a lack of a rim protector, I think having 2 long, athletic, true wings in the starting lineup makes a difference. So that's my number one takeaway.
Yeah, and they're going with it and sticking with it. They are benching in the starting lineup Ian Jackson, even though he's playing a lot. Jackson finished with 17 minutes. Kind of surprising, but he was tied for the most points with 16 minutes. So even though he's getting a lot less time, he's still being very productive. And Drake in the starting lineup played 32 minutes, which is right behind RJ Davis' 33. I think it's very hard, for the coaching staff and for Hubert to take Elliott and RJ out of the starting lineup. But I noticed, this is one of my takes, I noticed Elliott not in the game a lot. And whenever I looked up and UNC was doing really good things, Elliott was not out there. He only played 22 minutes. He had a plus minus of 7. That's the amount of score change when you're in the lineup, and that's behind RJ Davis, Drake Powell, Vidal Lubin, and Jae'Lyn Withers, and Seth Trimble. So Cadeau not playing as much. I think, and Cadeau had 2 points, all free throws, only took 3 shots, so just not very involved in the offense outside of 6 assists. So I think that's interesting. It's interesting development. They're leaning on Drake Powell a little more. Seth Trimble getting back involved. And it's just hard not to see what Ian Jackson does offensively. He was 3 for 3 from 3-point range. Just electric step
tough
back.
Shots, too.
Yeah, tough shots. NBA moves. He looks like a pro out there with some of the stuff he does offensively. But only 17 minutes. So that was another takeaway as well. Do you have another takeaway?
Well, just bouncing off that's a byproduct of going with the different starting lineup is, to start the year, I get it. You want to play your best players as many minutes as possible, but we can't have Ian Jackson, Seth Trimble, RJ Davis, and Elliot Cadeau playing 32, 33 minutes a game. It just doesn't work with all of them on the court together, even if those are your most talented guys. So that's just a byproduct where, Ian Jackson only played 17 minutes. I'd love for him to play 25 a game, but at least he's been more efficient in those limited minutes. Wouldn't you say? Even against NC State, I think he played, I wrote it down right here. Yeah, Ian Jackson, he played 21 minutes versus State, which is still pretty low, but an efficient 12 points. I thought he did the most in those minutes. So that's good to see.
Yeah, he's being way more efficient. He's 3 for 3 from field goal range, 3-point range, and 5 for 7 from field goal. I think another point to kind of mention is the fact that they've leaned on Withers a lot more. I don't know if that's one of your takeaways, but like, I mean, he was 4 for 6 from 3 in 29 minutes, scored 16 points. I mean, just like, he's playing like a stretch 4, you know, like just the way he shoots the ball, 4 for 6. It hasn't happened every game, but I feel like in the last couple of games, as he gets more time, he feels more comfortable. Withers has kind of stepped into a role that UNC really needed from him. He's kind of been the story of the last 3 games, last 3 wins for UNC. 5 for 8 from the field, 11 rebounds, so double-double. I mean, I think this might be Withers' best game as a Tar Heel. He's a plus 19, but the 4 for 6 really steps out. What'd you see from him?
Yeah, I completely agree. That was one of my points. You look at Jae'Lyn Withers, he started the year in the starting lineup, 5th-year guy, you know, supposed to be one of the guys UNC leaned on early on. He was out of the rotation in mid-January. Yeah. He wasn't playing. He was playing 3 minutes a game, had a couple do-not plays, and it was like, okay, is this guy's career at UNC kind of over? Credit to him for bouncing back, because you're right. These last 3 games, he had 19-6 versus Syracuse, 3 for 4 from 3. 8-4 versus State, 2 for 4 from 3. And then tonight, as you mentioned, 16-11, 4 for 6 from 3. And one of those was into the shot clock. So 4 for 5 on legitimate shots. Mm-hmm. It's been huge. And if you're Jae'Lyn Withers, you're shooting over 43% from 3 this year. If Carolina has any chance, you know, looking in the ACC tournament, or even if they somehow make the NCAA tournament, you got to have Jae'Lyn Withers hitting threes at a, 40% clip. And he's doing that the last 3 games. So if he can continue to do this, I like UNC's chances in some of these games.
Yeah, it's a huge development. I mean, I'm glad you had the stats, because I was going to ask what he's done in the last couple games. He's been pretty productive from 3.
9 from 14 from 3 in the last 3 games.
Great math. You'll take that. Yeah. I can't do the math on what my percentage is, but it's really good. I mean, that's a substantial statistical mark. Like 3 games is a good sample size. And obviously, he's playing a lot more. He's starting now. And like you said, Hubert's leaning on that bigger lineup with Withers at the 4, Vidal and Lubin starting at the 5, and then Drake Powell playing his natural position at the 3 and getting a lot more minutes there. I love Drake Powell. I want him to come back for another year. I think he'd benefit from another year. I'm not sure if it's financially the best thing, but I think UNC can throw $1 million or $2 million. I think he's worth, if you're going to pay Caleb Wilson a couple million, I think Drake Powell is worth that. A sophomore Drake Powell would be huge for his team. Scores 11 points. What he brings defensively, I just think he needs to be way more aggressive offensively. I think another year he could really develop into an offensive power. But him getting more time too. So we're seeing, I think, a little bit more of a structured lineup now. Less minutes.
It was a basketball team, Ross. It only took to February to do it.
I know, but I remember a couple of weeks ago, it was Jalen Washington was the guy who was getting more minutes. Through the state game, he was the star of that. And it was like, all right, Jalen Washington starting, and now he's getting 12 minutes a game, kind of your 7th or 8th player off the bench. That's interesting as well. I think it's important to note, the competition UNC's playing. State's a really bad team. State getting a huge win over Wake. Wake now is kind of like they have to be really good in their next 3 or 4 games to make the tournament. And their head coach has not made the tournament, and since he's been at Wake, Steve Forbes. UNC beat a bad Syracuse team, beat a bad NC State team, beat a bad Virginia team. It's what you got to do, but it's just the ACC basketball in general is so bad. I remember playing Virginia. It's like you're lucky to get a win against Virginia under Tony Bennett. Those teams are so strong, especially up in Charlottesville. So handled them. They have Florida State on Monday, so UNC will hit the road tomorrow and fly down to Tallahassee. Then Miami. Both those teams are awful. And then Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech scored 11 points in one half last week. Finished with 36, I think, against Boston College, and it's Duke. So UNC should win. They're playing well. UNC, despite how bad this team is and how much we've talked negatively about UNC, they are a top half ACC team, if not a top, tier, the second tier below the Duke and the Clemson teams, and then Duke to close out the season.
I think they were if the ACC tournament started today, they were a 6th seed. So maybe they're a top 3rd team with the new 18-team conference. Last takeaway from me: Carolina in the last 2 games, Syracuse, NC State led buzzer to buzzer. Did that again today. So the last 3 games they've played, they have not trailed for a single second in any of those 3 games. That is not something you saw early in the year. When they would start hot against some of the better competition, they would usually let them back in. And I will caveat that with, Syracuse State, Virginia. It's not the cream of the crop in college basketball, but it's nice to see Carolina actually put teams away convincingly instead of giving up that run at the end of a game that kind of makes you sweat as a fan watching on the couch.
Yeah, and also coming out at the beginning of the game, and especially against Virginia, obviously, and taking control of the game. I mean, it's hard to come back down 18-2, no matter what kind of runs you have inside you. UNC was dominant early and often all through those games. Great point there as well. Want to give a shout out here. I was watching the game. My buddy Robbie Eatman, big hitter listener. Robbie Eatman, F3 Maneater. Shout out him as well. And also, Connor, we were at, not you and I, but me and Rod were at He's Not on Wednesday night. We a little inside baseball here. We went to the game. Me and Rod got lunch and then got beers, kind of waiting, hanging around, and then it started snowing. It was snowing, and we were like, we got to stay here. Rod didn't want to drive back to Fayetteville. I didn't really feel great about driving back to Greensboro at like 11 p.m. So we got a hotel room in Carborough, and then we went out and got some beers with fans of the pod, big fans of the pod. I'm going to shout them out right now. I got to make sure I get their names straight.
Okay.
They're college seniors. Names are, you ready? Foley, Trent, Brooks, and Clayton at the Deke fraternity at UNC. We went to He's Not with them, along with some other undergrads who work on the statistical team for UNC. And it was a fun time in Chapel Hill. So a little undergrad experience for me and Ron in Chapel Hill after the state game. Fun scene. We haven't talked about this game on the pod, but they let all the fans in and had tons of students in Lower Bowl. So UNC gets that win over state as well, and a really fun blows out state. Just want to mention and shout those guys as well. All right. It's been a while. It was
great to hear.
I was the oldest guy. He's not by like fifth.
Did that kind of hit you a little hard?
Yeah, I mean, I knew I was the oldest person there because it was to Wednesday night. There weren't any alums there. There weren't any grads there. It was all undergrads, and it was a tough scene. It's
been too long since I've had a Blue Cup, Ross. I got like 10 in my cabinet in the kitchen, but I need a fresh one.
That's right.
Need a fresh one.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Anything else here?
I got a question for you.
Good. Hit me with it.
Big picture wise, these last 3 games, does that change the way you feel about Hubert Davis in this program moving forward? The last 3 games. Give
last 3 wins?
Yeah.
No, because these were really bad teams, and UNC should beat these teams. I'm the same stance on Hubert. I understand and accept he's coming back next year. I don't think Hubert's the guy moving forward. I think it's delaying the inevitable in terms of his status as UNC's head coach. I do think it's hard, but I think he deserves another year because of what he did last year and taking the team to the national championship. But I just don't think he's a great head coach and a great program builder. Now, I'm interested to see what happens with the general manager and the additional staff and what happens in transfer portal next year. But I'm worried about the roster next year. We've had some, we text here and there, Connor, me, you, and Spencer, and just looking at next year's roster, like they're going to have to get 6 to 8 people in the transfer portal, 3 to 4 impact starters in the transfer portal, and that's going to be tough to do. And then you have to hit all those guys as well. So I think it's going to be very tough for this team to be like a lot better next year. I mean, you're going to have to pray that Powell comes back because Ian Jackson's gone, Davis is gone. I don't know the status of Cadeau, but I could see Cadeau transferring or just starting his kind of pro clock. And yeah, who knows? I mean, I think Withers out of eligibility.
He's 5th year.
Ty Claude's out of eligibility. I would imagine Washington comes back, or maybe he transfers. So you're looking at a complete roster overhaul, and that requires you hitting in the transfer portal. And you got to hit on 4 players, let alone taking, like I said, 6 to 8 to even fill out a roster. You're bringing in 3 freshmen. So no. Long story short, it doesn't change how I feel about him, but dude, it gives me hope. I think this team has a chance to make the tournament. Especially look, Wake Forest loses, that opens it up a little bit for UNC. That UNC has to win the next 3, lose to Duke, and then win one. We have to win 2 in the tournament. One of those being over Clemson or Louisville, because that would give you a quad. I'm not a big net guy, but I think that would give you a quad 1 win.
Should be quad 1. They're top 25. I think you're right, though. And that was kind of my takeaway I wrote down is that UNC is supposed to beat 11-16 Syracuse. They're supposed to blow out 11-16 NC State at home. They're supposed to beat a 500 Virginia team at home. Just because Carolina finally resembles a basketball team in late February, it doesn't really make me feel that much better about the future. And that's what I want fans or people watching. It's like, as a fan, I'm excited. I'm thrilled they're 3-0 over the last 3 games. They've looked great doing it. They've been hitting threes. They were over 50% from 3 today. It's refreshing to see. I love to see it. But I'm not going to get caught up and be like, oh, we're due for another miracle run like 3 years ago. We're going to make the national titles an 8 seed. I just can't. I can't see that happening again this year. And that's what I wish I could. I wish I could get excited about it, Ross. But we've seen too much. The last 3 months, we've seen too much.
Yeah, I was talking with, shout out, Robbie Eatman, the man-eater. Like, if UNC had won some of those close games, let's look at the schedule here. Like, all right, you get past Kansas, three-point game on November 8th. You beat Michigan State in overtime, which was a winnable game. And then you look Florida. Like, now you're looking at a team that has 20 wins, or maybe 19 wins or so. They lost to Stanford by 1, lost to Wake by 1. You know, so they've had, but then again, they've won a lot of close games as well. But if any of those games I mentioned, I think those 5 games I mentioned, go the other way, which a lot of that's luck. A lot of it's missing a free throw, making a free throw. Then you're thinking about this team a lot of different ways. You're thinking about this team, all right, they're going to make the tournament. They're going to be an 8 or 9 seed, 7 seed in the tournament, and you can, get to the route of 32 or Sweet 16. But that didn't happen. And we're sitting here staring down 17. Do you think they get in? I think if they go 3-1 to close out the year, because we need to start talking about this. This is bubble. They're on the bubble. They're outside the bubble right now. Last 4 in, according to Mr. Joseph Lenardi. They close out the season 3-1. They cannot lose the next 3 games to Florida State, Miami, Virginia Tech, and I think they're going to have to win. Definitely at least one, and then maybe, like I said, get the win over. It'll be Louisville, Clemson, or whatever that number 2 or 3 seed would be, which would be a net. I think that would get you in, but that's a tall task. But they are playing better, so like you said, it gives you hope. Like the Virginia game, they looked really good. They shot a really high percentage from 3 and from the field. At halftime, they were shooting over 55% from the field, 75% from 3. They finished 48% from the field. That's pretty good. They're out rebounding other teams. 13 assists is pretty decent. Like, they're playing like pretty good basketball, which would you expect against bad teams. So it does give you a little glimmer of hope, and it just builds confidence. You got Withers playing really well. You got Jackson playing well. Davis is not playing that great right now, but it does give you some confidence as players stepping up.
What's funny is this isn't the end-all be-all, but coming into today, so before the game stay on Saturday, Carolina was minus 270 on sportsbooks to miss the tournament. So the odds makers in Vegas really expect them to miss the tournament. That's a lot of juice. So I wonder how
bet 100, bet 100 to make 270.
27 would be the odds on that. But the heavy juice right that is, if you bet $100 on them to miss the tournament, you're not making much money because they're expected to miss the tournament.
Gotcha.
So that was pretty telling. It's like, okay, yeah, they're on the bubble, but if they're almost minus 300 to miss it, that means that whoever's making those odds doesn't really feel that great about them. My other question would be this: why did it take so long for this team to figure out what they figured out the last 3 games? I know the lower competition, and I'm willing to concede some of that. But why did it take so long for this lineup to be figured out by Hubert Davis and this coaching staff? Because I feel like we were preaching back in November, December, hey, 4 guards isn't going to work. Play guys their natural position. I'm curious what took so long.
Yeah, it's a great question. Have they really
have an answer?
Yeah, have they really figured it out? They got beat by 20 by Clemson 2 weeks ago. But yeah, maybe they have found something by just going bigger and just saying that this size, rebounding, a little better defense, maybe sacrificing a little athleticism, maybe that's the thing that's going to work. I thought going small was the way. Play to your strengths. Roll out Davis, Ian Jackson, Cadeau, and Drake Powell at the 4. But I honestly think playing Cadeau less is the best answer. Maybe playing RJ Davis a little less. Like, I love Seth Trimble. I think he brings so much.
Yeah.
Even when he's not scoring, he still just kind of contributes defensively and rebounding and does things that only show up in the stat. The box score, only 5 points tonight. But, he attacks, he rebounds. I just really hope, I'm already thinking about next season. I shouldn't be, but I really hope Seth comes back and Drake comes back. I think that's a great base to start with next year. If you can surround those two guys, I think they're team guys. They bring a lot defensively and rebounding. I think those guys are great to build around. But, yeah, I don't mind Cadeau not playing as much. 2 turnovers today, 6 assists. You like to see that. 6 assists, 22 minutes. I mean, that's great production. But it's hard. You still see them struggle going to the basket, RJ and Elliott. All right.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's not any more to talk about here. Let's look at the schedule. So we got we'll probably do a midweek pod. I'm gonna try to get Rod Baxley on. He's been avoiding me. I asked him to come on a couple times. I want to get Rod Baxley on maybe midweek for just a general UNC Duke kind of podcast. We got Miami next Saturday.
Florida State on Monday.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Florida State. So I'll probably we'll do a midweek recap. And then Virginia Tech next Tuesday, and then Duke on Saturday. I'll probably go to that Duke game. But you got anything else, Connor?
We did an NIT preview podcast in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we might shut down if they don't make the tournament. Sorry, folks, that on transfer portal, honestly.
Yeah. Genuinely, though, you're right. Retaining Seth Trimble should be the number one priority. He had one foot out the door this summer, and I wouldn't be shocked, Ross. I wouldn't be shocked if he leaves, but I hope not.
Yeah, I think he's making a decent penny right now, too. So
yeah.
I think you pay those guys to come back, and then you surround them with some stud transfers, but you got to hit. So it's interesting to talk about. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. All right, Connor, appreciate your time. Guys, remember, drinkdeltaspirits.com. Use promo code BHO10. We've had a decent amount of sales. It's hard to transfer sales from podcasts to clicking a link, but I'll be them on Twitter as well. But great little cocktails. It's a good gift too. Shout out Robert Dunn, another listener. I gave him a couple of these moving to Greensboro. Here's the ginger beer, ginger mule, our favorite here. So drinkdeltaspirits.com. Rate, review, subscribe, and shout out Garrett putting together graphics on the back end. About to hit him with some photographs, and Connor's gonna get this out to you as you listen on Sunday. We'll talk to you next time, guys. We'll talk to you next time, guys.